Bonjour! Welcome to Susan's Cozy Kitchen. If you can't tell from my greeting, today we are making a French-inspired main dish for dinner. Full disclosure and disclaimers, this is a recipe that I have modified from the beloved Julia Child cookbook. And as I am a servantless American housewife, come along with me today as I make a French-inspired or a French-style beef stroganoff, or as Julia called it, Sauce de Boeuf à la Parisienne, which is translated to a beef sauté with cream and mushroom sauce. Let's get started. First thing I'm going to do is I have half of a sweet yellow onion, and I'm going to dice it up and have it ready to go in the pan, pot, the cooking vessel when it's time. So there's my half an onion diced. Let's grab our 8 ounces of already sliced mushrooms, or you can buy 8 ounces of mushrooms and slice them the way you want. Okay, let's get over to the stove. We're at the stove now. It is time to get this going. I'm going to turn on my eye to about medium flame, and I'm going to add a tablespoon of butter and a tablespoon of good olive oil. So, all right. So we'll let that melt. Okay, in goes the sweet yellow onion. Get that started cooking. And to that, I'm going to add my 8 ounces of mushrooms. Stir everything around in here together. Okay. I am going to season the onions and the mushrooms with a little bit of salt. And I'm going to cook this until the onion is nice and translucent and the mushrooms are browned and delicious. These are looking good. I have cooked them as much as they need to cook at this point. So I'm grabbing this because my handle is going to be hot. Going to put this into a little bowl that I have over here to the side. And then back onto I'm adding 2 tablespoons of butter and letting that melt. And I'm going to teach you a secret that my mom taught me a long time ago. It has served me well. The butter's nice and melted now. In goes the meat. Just let that fall in there. Okay, I've got this started browning. Break it up a bit. Going to let this start browning, but my secret is to add just a little bit of sugar. I have about a half teaspoon of sugar here. I'm going to just sprinkle that over the top of the beef. The sugar tenderizes the meat for you. So that's something that my mom has done for years, and her beef is always so nice and tender and absolutely delicious. And with it being such a small amount, you don't get sweet. It's just savory and meaty. Let's let that cook a bit. And to it, I'm going to add some steak seasoning, just because I like to pump up that beefy flavor. So that was about a half teaspoon of steak seasoning over it. I'm going to continue cooking the meat, stirring it. I will probably put the lid on and let it, you know, kind of build up that heat in there like you do with a slow cooker. I've lowered the heat some, and I'm just going to cook this until it's done. All right. So let's just let this cook a bit. I will stir it every now and then once the beef is done, we'll start making the sauce. Okay, this has been cooking for a few minutes now. The beef is looking absolutely fantastic. I'm going to take the beef out. I'm just spinning it out with my slotted spoon and putting it into the same bowl that's holding my mushrooms right now, the mushrooms and onions. I'm going to take all this out and we'll start the sauce next. All right, so in goes the cup of beef broth that I mixed together. So I'm going to turn up the flame underneath it, bring this to a nice boil and let it reduce down just a bit. Scraping the pan to pick up any little bits of beef that may have stuck on the bottom, anything that's left on there to give it that little extra bit of flavor. All right, so let's let that boil for a couple of minutes. Okay, this has started reducing down, so I'm going to lower the temperature again to about medium. The original recipe calls for a cup of heavy whipping cream. I will just, full disclosure here, I went to the store this morning to get a couple of ingredients that I needed to make this, and I completely forgot to buy the heavy whipping cream. It was the first thing at the top of my list, and I bought everything else but the heavy whipping cream. So I have a trick for when you forget your whipping cream, or you don't have any, or you don't want to run out to the store for just that little bit. You can use half and half with some butter. Okay, because the thing about the heavy whipping cream is it has a lot of fat in it. So by adding the real butter to the pan, we're adding in the fat, but we're also adding in the cream and the milk. So I typically like to, depending on what I'm making, use about a tablespoon of butter per quarter cup of half and half, but I just could not bring myself to put in a quarter cup of butter. So I'm only putting in 3 tablespoons of butter to my cup of half and half. And I'm adding the butter in there first just to kind of cool this down a bit. And now with my whisk, I'm going to start whisking, and I'm going to whisk in the half and half. Now, remember I said this is a cup minus a tablespoonful, because I used the tablespoonful to mix in with 2 teaspoons of cornstarch, which will obviously help to thicken the sauce. All right, that should be well whisked in. Now, going to give it a quick little taste. Just a small spoon here. Oh my goodness. That is fantastic. All right, let's put, oh, I forgot cornstarch. I'm going to use this rubber spatula and scrape all of that in there. And then back with my flat whisk to stir that in. Let it start thickening, and I'm turning down the heat to low and back in with the beef and the mushrooms, and I'm just using my spoon to help guide it in slowly so it doesn't splash. Sorry for my arm. Okay, there's everything back in there, including any of the juices that, you know, came out of them while they were sitting there, because you want all that flavor back in here. Now I've got this in here, and I'm just going to cover it and let it cook on low, probably for the next half hour, maybe hour. In a half hour, I'll check it to see if the beef is nice and tender. If it's not, I will go ahead and let it cook at least another 30 minutes on low. If it is, then I will turn it off. But basically, everything is cooked. If I needed to, I could go ahead and serve it right now. It would be fine. But like I said, I want to cook it low and slow, let it get really tender, and then serve this over egg noodles. You could serve it with rice or with the other thing, mashed potatoes. Yeah, that's it. Okay, so let me give you a quick rundown on what I have done. So I turned the stroganoff down to low, covered it, and let it cook for 30 minutes. I did pop in, stir it a couple of times just to make sure it wasn't sticking on the bottom. At 30 minutes, it was not quite as tender as I wanted it to be, so I set the timer for another 30 minutes. I checked it at 20 minutes, and it was nice and tender at that point. So I took the lid off, turned the heat up just slightly, and let it boil for the next 10 minutes so that it thickened the gravy in here. So, okay, there's a small piece and a mushroom. Okay, out they come. So it's nice and, oh yeah, just very, very tender. Now a piece with the mushroom. Absolutely scrumptious. I will cut some parsley to sprinkle over the egg noodles that I'll be making and the stroganoff when I serve it. Other than that, it is finished and ready for dinner. As always, the full recipe with instructions, tips, tricks, and all those little things that I might have forgotten to say in the video will be in the description box below, along with links to my social media. I would love it if you'd follow me there. If you enjoyed today's video, please be sure and give it a big thumbs up. If you've not already, please do subscribe and hit that notification bell so that you find out every time I upload a new video to YouTube. And as always, thank you for watching. God bless.